grocery strike is long over. The shock has just set in for union employees who crossed the picket line and now learn the consequences. RTD decides not to go it alone on masks after the masks dropped just about everywhere else. Remember before the pandemic when we would pretend that the invasion of the scooters was Denver's biggest issue? Well, they're back. Swarms of them. A park ranger reflects on 35 years spent in a place that's not supposed to change. And with tiny homes on the move, we learned that your micro-giving campaign to address homelessness is going to more than double its impact. Because you don't just watch. Because this is next. The grocery strike that captured Colorado's attention seems like history. Those 9 days in January with the stores scrambling, picket lines circulating, accusations flying. It ended with a new contract for King Soopers employees. But it's still not over for the union workers who chose to cross the picket line. Our Marshall Zellinger found it's costing them every dollar they earned and then some.
UFCW Local 7, that's the union supporting and representing King Soopers workers. Well, the union has let certain members know they've been fined for working during the January King Soopers strike. This letter was received by a union worker. They did not want to be interviewed for fear of retaliation. We have blurred the name and the dollar amount UFCW Local 7 is seeking because it would give away which union worker received this. The worker is being fined by the union thousands of dollars. The letter states that the worker is subject to a fine of $250 per day of the violation, as well as all monies earned from King Soopers during the dates they worked across the picket line.
It seems a little harsh and a little bizarre, but yes, under the law, under the National Labor Relations Act and state statutes and the collective bargaining agreement, a union can charge fees for those union members who cross the picket line. 9
News legal analyst Whitney Traylor tells us unions do have the power to go after union workers financially.
The union's strongest leverage is to strike. So if members are crossing that picket line, that defeats and takes away a lot of the union's power, and therefore they do have these rights to penalize members who cross the line.
The workers are given an opportunity to appeal, but the appeal is made to the same UFCW Local 7 executive board that implemented the fines. Traylor says the workers could fight the fines as being excessive, but the law does not define excessive.
If they're charging $250 a day, that's likely more than the person's making daily. That's a strong argument for being excessive.
In a text Tuesday morning, Kim Cordova, president of UFCW Local 7, confirmed the fines being issued. She wrote, "Those members that crossed betrayed their fellow union members who struck and achieved the richest contract in King Soopers history." During the strike, we couldn't hear enough from UFCW. It's been difficult to contact them lately on this story. So I did what I did. I spoke with some workers at one of the King Soopers I go to, and when I told them about my story today, they said 4 of their workers got letters and 2 for sure did not cross the picket line. Whitney Traylor tells me that if the union goes after someone inappropriately, the union could face sanctions.
So suppose you were a union member who decided for whatever reason, I'm going to go to work. What options did you have to not get fined after the fact?
Apparently, you should have known about the CBA in some way, but I've done some research. You could have resigned from the union, and I'm not exactly sure what that takes, if it's like a phone call, a letter, whatever, but you could have resigned from the union and then gone to work, and you would have no longer been a union member.
Interesting to see this play out months after everybody else has forgotten about it. All right, Marshall, thank you. Boulder County simply cannot catch a break on wildfire watch. They've had 3 fires this afternoon. Newest 2 are both small. No homes threatened at this point. One is just north of Boulder, east of Eltona. The other one is west of the Flatirons on Flagstaff Road. We're monitoring those 2. Largest fire of the day up there did cause some evacuations. It was a grass fire near Tallyho Trail, south of the Twin Lakes area. Deputies went door to door telling a few people that they needed to get out for a while. Never came to the point that they had to send out one of those automated evacuation notices. Fire was knocked down pretty quickly. Everybody can return home, and firefighters say a woman who lives in the area is expected to face charges for starting that fire. That one got going just as elected leaders happened to be doing a tour of the burn area of the most destructive fire in Colorado history, not far away. Democratic Senator Michael Bennet was there, along with the mayors of Louisville and Superior. They were surveying the debris removal process for the Marshall Fire, which just began this week. It's jawline season on public transportation in the Denver metro area because RTD dropped its mask mandate today. First time that full faces are welcome to board in 2 years. When a federal judge struck down the CDC's nationwide mask order for transportation yesterday, RTD was like, I don't know, give us like a day to figure this out, all right? DIA just, boom, dropped the cloth faster than a streaker at a baseball game, but RTD decided to hold out and make its decision final today. Masks are now optional for RTD's trains and buses, as well as out at the airport. Same goes for Uber and Lyft rides. Hopefully people will be decent to each other no matter what they choose. The sudden disappearance of the mask mandate was not the decision of public health experts. It was a single judge who made the call. Dr. Pyle Coley, our 9 health expert, does not think this bodes well for the next pandemic when somebody says, believe the science.
Already, the last 2 years have undermined the public health organization, which is the CDC, scientists, experts, and the community has lost faith in these organizations. So the fact that we've now taken away the mask in such a dramatic, sudden, and unprecedented way, without the CDC's approval or knowledge, in contrast to what they're saying, has made the people that were disbelievers in masks become even more disbelieving, which means that when the next pandemic comes or any other infectious disease catastrophe descends on our country, A, people are not going to trust what the CDC has to say because this really undermined their authority. And B, even if there is a ruling that's made by the CDC, a lot of people may not comply with it.
So given that this was a legal decision, we also touched base with our legal analyst, Whitney Traylor, who said, this goes to show why these rules are often challenged in places where attorneys think they'll find sympathetic judges. In this anti-mask case, it was Florida. It has been 7 years since his wife's killing. Perhaps Robert Feldman thought he wouldn't be held accountable. It took jurors only a few hours today to find him guilty of murder, life in prison. This happened within the last hour. The jury did not buy Feldman's argument that his wife Stacy had unexplained medical issues that led to her death. Prosecutors said it was easily explainable, that she had found out that her husband was cheating, and then he killed her. Stacy Feldman's friends and family have made sure that Robert Feldman had a daily reminder of his wife lately. They placed these pink flags and ribbons in Southmark Park, right next to Feldman's home, so he would see them coming and going each day for the trial. Remember the before times, pre-COVID, when we all were so starved for topics of conversation that we went round and round about those dockless scooters that showed up in Denver? Oh, what a mess. Oh, they're a danger. Well, then the pandemic hit and we found that there are real issues in the world. But the scooters are back big time. Our Steve Steger found a new tool to track them with the goal of making streets safer.
Transportation, typically when we talk about volumes or miles traveled, typically people are referring to vehicle miles traveled.
Spend an hour in the heart of downtown Denver. You will quickly realize there are a lot more ways to log miles than being behind the wheel of a car.
I work at a regional agency, and I think we really want to get that big picture, how shared micromobility fits into our overall transportation system. Right?
Emily Lindsay works for Dr. Cog, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, not a medical doctor. But this doctor has a new prescription to figure out how many people are using those shareable scooters and bikes.
Up until this point, we've only really shared the data of that trip information with cities to help them track and manage their programs. But now we get to share that publicly.
Nellie Pearson is with the company that provides the data, Ride Report. And it's really cool data.
We saw that in the last 6 months here on 17th and Arapahoe, 42,000 bike and scooter trips happen.
Likely because this intersection has a protected bike lane. Infrastructure will be important because the same data shows scooters and bikes are making a post-pandemic comeback.
Before the pandemic, the highest trips per day was around 11,000, and that's throughout the entire region. So in one day, they saw 11,000 trips. And we recorded in the last quarter the cap at 32,000 trips a day.
Ride Report is making all of this data public so researchers, advocates, and city planners alike can figure out how to make streets safer.
We have X number of people kind of riding through this space, and if we have this many people, should we be improving the infrastructure to accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians in a comfortable and a safe and a connected way?
The good doctor, Dr. Cog, is using this data to figure out how the system works regionally. You've got Denver, Aurora, Boulder, Arvada, and Littleton that all have scooters and these e-bikes, the shareable bikes. Did you know that? We're going to put a link to this story on 9news.com a little later on tonight after I finish writing it so that you can check it out and potentially nerd out on all this stuff like me. I have to say, the suburbanite in me is super fascinated to see how many people are scooting and biking in Littleton with these things. It's fascinating. And you can look at the average trip length. Like in Littleton, it's about 0.8 miles, a little bit longer in the city of Denver. So they're going to take all this data and try to do something with it.
Suburban Steve, transit nerding out on this. I mean, I live in the city, but not near the city center, and did not see them in my neighborhood until I'd say like maybe the last 3 months. But with that tool, I can actually find out where are they coming from, where are they going.
Well, and I think a lot of the confusion of the beginning of this has died down. In the beginning, you saw, well, I think we had 4 or 5 different companies inside the city of Denver. Now it's regulated. There are specific contracts for Lime and for Lyft to have scooters and bikes within the city limits. There are places where they're allowed to park and where they're supposed to be parked, and you get incentivized if you park them in other places. So there's just more consistency now, and I think that might be part of the reason why you're seeing a lot more of these scooters around town.
Thank you, Steve. If you did a double take at a tiny home or two rolling down the road today, here's a third look for you. The tiny homes were moved from the Cherry Creek Innovation Campus, where students built the homes, over to the Colorado Village Collaborative's new site, which is opening next month in Denver's Swansea neighborhood. These, of course, are transitional housing units between homelessness and a permanent home for one of our neighbors. One of your Word of Thanks campaigns last year raised more than $50,000 to add 2 new tiny homes to the village. And some news on that today. Colorado Village Collaborative, the nonprofit behind the effort, says that thanks to a new deal with Cherry Creek Innovation Center to do the builds on the houses, that means that your donations are actually going to be able to pay for 5 new tiny homes. Groundbreaking is set for the fall. We'll go together. A plan to warn you about energy price hikes before they hit. State legislators pulled the plug today. Colorado has a late cutoff for entering kindergarten compared to other states. Your next question led us to learn why that rule's so hard to change. 35 years is a long time to spend at one job. She did it.
I really believe in saving these special pieces.
This has been an exceptional office. She invites us in next. Our next question comes from Elizabeth in Denver. Curious why Colorado's kindergarten cutoff date is so late compared to other states. That is a great question, Elizabeth. So currently 4-year-olds can start kindergarten in Colorado if they turn 5 before October 1st. And that's actually written into state law. Our State Board of Ed says that it lines up with the October student count day, when the number of students in class determines state funding levels. So, Elizabeth, to change the kindergarten cutoff, it would literally take an act of the legislature. Keep those questions coming, big or small. Any topic in Colorado is fair game. If you would, please record it on video or audio and email it to next@9news.com. You know what we always say. If you're wondering, someone else is too, and we'll find you an answer.
A few clouds around the area, but generally the trend is just windy, warm weather with high fire danger. Temperatures way above the average of 62, almost 80 in Denver, almost 90 in southern Colorado. Gusty winds are coming in ahead of a weak front that'll basically miss Colorado, but may provide a brief snow shower in the northern mountains. Lower elevations will see those gusty winds rush down along the Front Range, and due to the wind, the lack of moisture and the warmth, red flag warnings continue for critical fire weather conditions in east central and southeastern Colorado. And so as we move you through the next couple of days, we'll be a smidge cooler on Wednesday and then back to the upper 70s and lower 80s for Thursday and Friday. Cooler for the weekend, mid 50s Saturday and Sunday, with a chance for some beneficial rain showers both days over the weekend.
Severe weather can impact our energy bills when utilities have to pay inflated prices and then pass those along. A bill to require utilities to give us a heads up on that in the future died a bipartisan death in the state legislature today. So say there's a winter storm that's forecast a week out. Public utilities would have had to reach out to customers in 2 different ways to say, hey, this is coming. It could cause electricity or fuel price increases, and they'd have to offer tips on how to conserve. Basically, trying to prevent what we saw last February, when utility companies were buying energy at bonkers high prices, and they're still trying to get regulators' approval to pass that cost on to customers. Both Democrats and Republicans in committee today voted that bill down unanimously. They said they liked the concept, but they thought it was too broad.
If you've been to Rocky Mountain National Park, there's a good chance you've run into Kathy.
I actually asked a ranger in the Grand Canyon, they pay you to do this? And from then on, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my career and with my life.
35 years later, she reflects on the change she's seen in a place that's meant to look the same for generations. Next.
Within the last 2 minutes, like during that commercial break, we learned that there is a new lawsuit trying to fend off the primary challenge for Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. State Senator Don Coram made the ballot to challenge Boebert through collecting petition signatures. There is now a legal team, including former prosecutor George Brockler, who is suing, saying that the Secretary of State's office counted signatures that should have been disqualified, and Boebert's primary challenger should be tossed off the ballot. Stay tuned for that. You got to know the territory. And for Kathy Brazelton, it was 415 square miles to be able to answer any and all questions from visitors at Rocky Mountain National Park. After 35 years as a park ranger there, Kathy shared what it's meant to connect people with nature.
They're stepping into this giant ecosystem when they get here, and they don't know the rules, they don't know the relationships, so it's our job as good hosts to tell them. I'm Kathy Brazelton. I'm one of the rangers here at Rocky Mountain National Park. I'm the district ranger for interpretation, so I run all of the visitor centers and walks and talks on the east side of the park. My parents were both environmentally oriented, and they took us on rides in the big station wagon. I remember I actually asked a ranger in the Grand Canyon, they pay you to do this? And from then on, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my career. The first job with the National Park Service was 1986, Florissant fossil beds outside of Colorado Springs. Me being a female, when I first started, I was one of the youngest chief rangers. That's the law enforcement kind of ranger in our region. The National Park Service family was always supportive and welcoming. Other folks were a little surprised, I think, sometimes. What can I help you guys find today? You know, it's funny, you work at a visitor desk and people come in, Ranger Kathy, we met you 15 years ago. It's like, oh. But I try to get out of the office at least once a week to remember the park. And now that I'm headed towards retirement, my name for the summer is Tent Girl. I'm going to be backpacking all summer. It's just time in life to step aside, let somebody else come in with fresh ideas, fresh viewpoints. I will always be a ranger. I will always love the park. The thing that I'm so glad has stayed the same is the esprit de corps. The ranger family is a very special family, and we don't take this job to get rich. Thank you to everybody who has been a part of my career. It's been a blessing to be here. And just that reminder of these are your lands. Come on up here, and if you can, bye-bye.
So what does Kathy plan to do in retirement? Among other things, volunteer at national parks. Have your feedback next. Feedback from Cindy tonight in Douglas County, who says she has 3 teenagers at home and would like to know where to get Narcan, naloxone, which can reverse an overdose. The website, stoptheclockcolorado.org. Cindy, thank you for taking your family's safety seriously. See you next time.